folks. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? Shh. Welcome to our second episode where we're talking turkey. Thanksgiving is less than a week away, and we've just been through one of the nastiest elections in modern history. I think we all need a palate cleanser. Welcome to the second episode of the St. Albans Message, the audio companion to the St. Albans Messenger, where we feature Vermont-focused discussions not always heard in the public conversation to better explore our communities and provide insight into the state's challenges. I'm your host, Josh Hellebrock. We're not doing anything too complex today. Just talking to nice people about how to be nice people. Yeah. So here's the scene. Okay. Imagine too many cooks in the kitchen at the Fairfield Community Center.
Well, hanging out in the kitchen. So
Are we okay over here? Or? Yeah, I'll probably use this stove. Probably.
Let's welcome our guests for today. We have KarenMarie Peltier, the hostess with the mostest, Sunni Tipper, the chef at the Fairfield Community Center, Joe Halko, former communications director at NCSS, and Arleigh Young, downtown St. Albans' biggest fan. Let's listen in.
Volunteers from the food shelf saying, use this in something. God. So I've got cabbage. I think this is probably kale, and my potatoes and onions and carrots that I clearly am going to have to find the good ones and maybe get some more. But
Does everybody do the turkey thing? Is that?
I do something a little different.
Okay.
I baste it and I cook it in cheesecloth
nice.
With herbs next to the skin, and then you just keep basting it. I tried doing it just the good old-fashioned way one year, and my family was really upset. So now I've gone back to all the herbs all over the place and the basting mix. So
Gotcha.
in my mind, I'm like, don't mess up the audio, but you want sound.
Yeah. We're all judging you on your technique.
I know. I don't even watch like this in school. Well, I'm really lucky because my family has done a party every year with a group of other families. So when my mom moved into Vermont, she didn't know a lot of people, so she met some folks at work. They became fast friends, and over the years, we have grown to always do Thanksgiving with that group of people. So our fun name for it is Orphans and Waifs, because they were all folks that didn't have family nearby. And what's fun about it is everybody sort of has their specialty now after all these years. So for me and my family, it's the pies. We bring the pies. We're the apple pie and the pumpkin pie. That's the other pie I'm trying to think of. But then everybody else brings, of course, we do the traditional turkey, but somebody makes that. Somebody makes the stuffing. So it's a lot of fun to get everybody's sort of individual flavors all brought together in a group like that.
Who came up with the name?
One of the top tier friends, her name is Camilla.
Okay.
She lives in Montgomery, and she was the originator of Orphans and Waifs.
Nice, very nice. Yeah. Everybody comes with their own flavor.
Exactly, and we've pulled in, people, friends that have moved here and don't have other people to have holidays with. So it's grown over the years. We probably have about 35 people now, and it started with about 12, I would say.
Nice.
Yeah.
nice.
Yep.
And ours is a rather small gathering. I'm a terrible cook, so
Welcome to. Don't worry about it.
Now there are those who would say,
together.
"Do you do that on purpose so you don't have to?" The answer is no. I do basic things, but anyway, my wife's in charge of the entire day, and we do a pretty traditional scenario as far as turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole. She's introduced some squash. Sides as well over the years with maple syrups and things of that nature, which have been pretty interesting. And of course, pumpkin pie as well. But I guess I would say pretty traditional, but always just amazing. Mm-hmm. And as we'll be talking later, just the foundation of being able to get people together and to talk over food.
Yep.
So, and to be thankful. Yes. I think, one of the things we always do is we go around the table and start with, what are you thankful about this year? Yes. And of course, that could be anything. It can be somebody, whatever, graduated from school, whatever the case may be. Yeah. But really want to take the opportunity to have people feel comfortable and also to give thanks for what we do have, because we're very fortunate, when we look at the world, and we have Sunny over here who's crying because of
onions.
It's not the onions, it's such a
the onions.
There's a, for our audio listeners, we have 3 onions that are now cut in half, and she's chopping them.
Chopping and crying.
And
Right in the eyes.
Yeah. And a great aroma. Started.
Is it the fresher onion has more juice, or is it the older onion? What is the?
I don't know that rule.
Maybe I'm the one that's supposed to know.
Any meal prep tips?
Oh, well, I always do whatever I can for our meal, because we feed about 30, so it's different every week with what I decide to do. It's always based off of what is better to sit for a day or whatever, but if you're prepping at home, I always will, on my list is always going to be just cut all the vegetables.
Yeah.
Because that is so monotonous and you don't think about it. And so many people buy those pre-cut veggies and all that stuff because that's the easier part. But yeah, just cut it all up. And then you can throw it in. And literally, if that's all you do is having everything cut. One year when I hosted a really big Thanksgiving, I just cut all my potatoes and had this huge pot of pre-cut in the water on my porch. It was cold, snow on the ground. And I had this pot of potatoes outside, ready to go on the stove and be boiled.
Smart.
That's if you can't think of anything to do and you're like, well, I could do it all that day. Just cut up all your crap. Oh, is that a bad? Are we,
No,
cut
that's
up all your
fine.
stuff.
Yeah, you can say crap, I think. I think it's all right. No, that's a fantastic tip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably the simplest, or at least the one that everyone can manage if you can think of anything. But
Yeah.
marinating your turkey and all that is fun, and trying different things. Like I always try and do different things if I have the wherewithal to try different things for the turkey. I've done the bacon weave. Have you seen that where you make like a little basket sort of looking thing, and it was fine and it was fun, but just not a necessary time. I was like, oh, there's bacon on top. Well,
And it's woven. I want to jump into some of what Joe was talking about before in terms of essentially, the importance of eating together as people, right? The idea of a shared meal, kind of what that means. But Joe, you have a lot of experience working with people. and tell me some of what do you find that tradition brings to a group? How does that help connect people?
Well, I think, I think the first thing is, when everybody comes together for this holiday, or any holiday for that matter, but we're focusing on Thanksgiving, is sometimes you have some new individuals who haven't been with the group before. And I think one of the very first things that we need to be cognizant of is to getting them involved in being conversational so they don't feel like they're an outsider in a group that knows one another pretty well. So, some of the ways that you want to get them involved is you certainly want to acknowledge that they're there and then ask them to, tell people a little bit about themselves, whatever they'd like to talk about. Maybe it's what they do, maybe it's the passions that they have. And I think then another important thing in all of the conversation is when you're speaking with somebody, number one, I wanted to start with this, which is the most important thing. The most important thing is that we listen. I think too often what happens is people will get involved in a conversation and they kind of are forming what they want to say about whatever it is we're talking about. And in doing that, they don't listen to what the person who's speaking at the time is really saying.
Yeah.
So I think, that is really the most important thing, is that we become good listeners. Beyond that is that when somebody is speaking and whatever it is they're talking about, is you want to learn more about that. So 3 words, tell me more. Those 3 words will help carry conversations that may seem like they're going to get dormant or stale. Or when you ask somebody to tell me more about whatever it is they're talking about, that then gets them galvanized and at another level. Because what you're really saying is, you really do want to hear what they have to say. And you're not just kind of throwing up a roadblock to, future conversation. So I think some of those tips or things are critically important when people come together. But as I said, I think the very most important thing, first and foremost, is to be a good listener as a starting point.
I think it's called listening to understand,
Yeah.
and not just to respond.
Yeah.
I wrote down listening versus absorbing,
Yeah.
where it's like you hear stuff every day, from all sorts of,
Yeah.
sources of things, and I think that a lot of people these days we're so used to blocking out the noise because it's all
Yeah.
the time. It's
Yeah.
all the time.
Yep.
And so it's being able to delineate the difference between, what's an advertisement, what's that sign, versus engaging with that person as a human being, really seeing them and absorbing what they're saying and responding in kind. I think it's just so powerful.
And it takes work. I mean, when I say the word work, because you're right, Josh, tens of thousands of messages we get bombarded with, no matter where we go, what we do. People that are on social media, people that are at a website, driving in your car, whatever the case may be. You're right, we're just bombarded with information, and it becomes information overload and a matter of trying to decipher, okay, what's important, and let's talk about whatever that is.
Well, I want to open up the listening idea to kind of the idea of place, because I think when someone walks into a building, right, there are messages that you're seeing no matter what, right? There's some of that's cultural, some of that's just, maybe it's you have certain attachments to your grandma's house and certain smells or whatever it might be, where another individual might go into that same area and have a different reaction because they have different cultural cues or whatever it might be. But I want to kind of discuss that a little bit in terms of how do you make a place welcoming for everybody? Or, how do you make sure that when someone feels comfortable in either your home or visiting a friend or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I know, going back to what I was saying about our celebration every year and having this diverse group of people that are from different places around the states and have had different family experiences and things like that. To me, it's always the huge table with all the chairs around the table. There's no separation of place for when people are sitting down for that meal and having that conversation. So you have your people that are right near you, but you can hear the conversation 3 people down and get involved in that conversation. So just having that openness to allow for multiple conversations, or even just in the wider room, having spaces where people can sort of maybe parse off and have a small group conversation with some new people or somebody coming into the situation that's new, gives them the opportunity to learn about people on a smaller scale and then get into that big table dinner discussion. So I think both of those things are really important for larger types of celebrations.
I think respect. I think a lot of people say the word respect and don't realize what it entails. I think it's looking people in the eye when you speak with them, waiting for them to finish their sentences before you start on something else, actually listening, like Joe was talking about, listening to understand, making space for their opinion, not feeling like you have to fill every quiet moment. Sometimes it's a pregnant pause. There's more coming. And so just having that respect and that humility to know that every single person on this planet is deserving of respect and honor just for being alive. just for being a living, breathing soul. And so just making space for that. And for me also, it's gratitude. You know, having experienced more than my share of grief in my life, I can really appreciate these special opportunities. You know, when you lose loved ones and you lose people in your life, and when you face your own battles, which I've had as well, health battles, it teaches you to reflect on the value of every single living being, but also it teaches you to be grateful in everything, in every little thing. Gratitude is key. And so being grateful for your perspective, being grateful for your perspective, you know, and just kind of looking at it as, I don't know everything, and I don't even know what I don't know, but I'm really happy to learn from others and to listen to what they have to say. I think of a holiday that was at my house within the past few years where there were two very dominant personalities that basically manipulated the whole conversation. And I kept trying to bring other people in. That was a workout. That was like a mental workout, trying to bring other people into the conversation. But, you know, and eventually some of us just kind of meandered off to a different room and let those two strong, you know, opinionated persons get into it on their own. And it was political. And I thought to myself, you know, sometimes people are not self-aware.
Yep.
And so we have to make space for that.
Sometimes?
Frequently, Josh. I have to change my wording there. Frequently, people are not self-aware. We have to make room for those people as well.
Yep.
And another thing is empathy.
Yes.
I think, you know, in the way that the world has been changing so rapidly, being empathetic to individual circumstances and is critically important because you learn a lot, I think, by being empathetic as well.
Yep.
Because you want people to be able to feel comfortable and share. By the same token, you learn things and you go, wow. That circumstance is something, how would you deal with it if it were you? So I think that's another critical factor in trying to keep conversations and everything going, is empathy.
Yeah.
I think empathy teaches us, wow, that person's been through a lot in the last few weeks. So, yeah, maybe they're being a little rough around the edges, but I'm going to give them a lot of slack because
Right.
I don't know how I would deal with that. Or I remember what it's like to be like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, someone goes into your house, right? You're hosting a place. One thing I always find that's really strong, you know, the sense of smell, sense of taste,
Yes.
right, are so like grounding, right?
Yes.
So, what? I don't want to say like, what do you want your house to smell like when people go in? But I kind of want to do at the same time. Like, what are some of the things that you might be able to do to make you more inviting on that sort of level?
Well, I just moved into a new environment, and one of the things that drove me crazy for the first week was, where is that smell coming from? I was trying to clean everything, you know, trying to figure out where these unpleasant odors were coming from. So I totally am keyed into what you're saying here. And having been in, you know, having had 3 bed and breakfasts and this one going on, 13 years or something, I can tell you that matters a lot to people. The olfactory sense is alive and well in most people. So I don't use harsh chemicals. I use earth-friendly products, and we sanitize with natural herbs whenever possible. Lavender, mist on the pillows, and you know, all kinds of things. There are so many things you can do.
Yeah.
And I cut my sage for my turkey a couple weeks ago, and it's sitting in a, you know, and it smells heavenly every time I walk by. It's sitting in the little mason jar of water. There are so many things. But just, I think, avoiding harsh chemicals. I'm one of those people that's very sensitive to them, and so I really appreciate it when people, you know, use cologne with, you know, what's the word I want? Just just a pinch or just a tiny bit instead of going gangbusters, or even better, just using all natural fragrances and essential oils, which is so much healthier for everybody, but it makes space for people in that sense too. You know, everybody feels welcome. Nobody's sitting there struggling with allergies while they're trying to have a good time.
Yeah. No matter who you are, you're going to have certain expectations around how you're going to be treated, right? And so it's like acknowledging that, knowing it, but also just like that idea of empathy, being able to reflect that in that space.
And speaking of aromas and all that sort of thing, is certainly for a Thanksgiving gathering, one of the first things you're going to smell would be like the turkey and fixings and all that sort of thing, which is amazing. To KarenMarie's point, we also have a small basket of potpourri in our powder room. I'm going to go to the bathroom here, but again, it's just very, very mild, but yet it's something that when someone, again, is in your space and that they feel, they've taken the time to try to make sure that, however you want to say it, comfortable in your powder room. So I think it's going, we've even over time, depending on circumstances and that, utilized candles, which can also assist with whatever you're trying to do as far as creating a welcoming aroma as well.
Yeah. And then I'm going to try. Well, Arleigh, do you want to add anything to the smells conversation?
No, I mean, I think I would second the essential oils. I think go a long way, and you can very inexpensively get a small amount of essential oils. And if you have baseboard heaters, if you just put a drop of essential oil on your baseboard heater, every time that heater turns on, it actually activates the smell. So you don't have to have a plug-in or it's a nice, inexpensive way to have nice smells come into your room.
I'm probably going to do that. Well, it's like we're all talking around kind of the same issue of empathy and welcomingness. I want to kind of try to even open it even more, if I could, and talk about environment and community, right? So there's also cultural aspects of this, which I feel like, can come from the community side. But it's like culture is so much just, those behaviors of like kind of what we expect in a way. But like, how can you make sure that everyone's on board? And obviously you can't like test everyone before they come into a situation, but like, how do you want to, how would you, accomplish that without being so obvious?
You mean everyone's on board with empathy?
With like a good vibe, having a good time. Like, how do you make sure everybody feels welcome and are on the same page? Right.
I think sometimes you have to come right out and say, can we avoid politics today, please? There are more important things in life than politics. Politics is a season. It's something we all have to endure, but it's not forever. And it's something that, can be overlooked. And we can realize sometimes that maybe we've become too ensnared in it during a political process like we've had recently. But it's sort of myopic, right, to have that view. And I think it's more important to look at the long view. When I have differences with family members, I'll cry, but usually in my car or in my bedroom and not in front of them. And, and then I'll tell myself, you know what, I can do hard things. I've done hard things before. And 10 years from now, this person is probably not even going to realize the damage they just did to me. And I'm choosing to let this go. I'm choosing to focus on all the wonderful things this person brings into my life and be so grateful that they're in my life and that I get to learn from this experience as well. And that's how I've navigated a lot of, shall we say, testy Thanksgivings and Christmas gatherings in the past. Especially, when people can be very trite and not not really think about what they say sometimes. You lose a loved one and someone's like, oh, it's better than suffering.
Right.
Okay, I didn't need that right now. So these are the types of things that we have to learn to overlook, because it's a part of emotional intelligence. It's a part of just saying, I choose to overlook this. I choose to extend grace to this person because God knows I need grace in my life. And I'm not perfect either. And just let it go. Just let it go. And sometimes you have to remind yourself every half hour, you let that go.
I have grace.
I'm going to be
Hanging on
gracious.
to that.
I let that go a half an hour ago. I'm not going to take it back.
Yep.
But that's how I've had to navigate even some of the people who come into my home who've been completely obnoxious and opinionated. But that's what happens when you host foreigners sometimes, when you host, people from anywhere and, all over the world. So it's just, and if you travel a lot, you realize that, we Americans aren't the end all. That's one of the things that I love about international travel is it reminds me how much more there is to learn about life and love and character and respect. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents.
As a host, if you set a precedence with your own attitude and you feel comfortable navigating people out of those conversations, it becomes easier than you think.
It does.
Like, personally, I'm very comfortable kind of being a jokester, and if it comes up, it's very, especially if it's in my space and my hosting home or whatever, it's very easy to almost make a joke and turn the wheel away. And who you've invited, and who might say something, and who might want not to hear that. So, the company you keep is going to be able to dictate, as long as you keep yourself in that mindset and you're comfortable, making sure that everyone is comfortable in your home, it becomes easier than you think.
Yeah. Yep.
It's great suggestion.
And Sunny, to your point, the use of humor, I think, is critical in these circumstances. That first of all, you have to be able to laugh at yourself, and you have to let people know that you are able to laugh at yourself, and that's okay. Because then, if you utilize humor sometime throughout the day or evening, hopefully people won't get offended by. But humor can, and I'm not saying stand-up jokes and all that sort of thing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Just taking a conversational tidbit and kind of then moving it by using a little bit of humor just to get people to more or less decompress, and that, oh yeah, we need to move on. I think is critically important.
I agree.
So that would just be another element that I would put on the chart is humor.
Yeah, I don't take myself seriously at all, Joe. So I'm all with you.
Yeah, and I would go back to, we spoke about it earlier, about doing at the beginning of the dinner that going around and saying what everyone is grateful for. I think if your tone from the start is a positive tone, then people are going to carry that tone. If you don't let it get into that negative field, you take it that way. Start that tone off in a positive way. And you can even add to that by, doing fun little question cards at each chair that is maybe something more pop culture or just things that get you to talk about things that really don't have anything to do with those more hard topics that people might start to be combative against. So working on fun things that create that more fun and positive environment for everybody.
Delicately and purposefully saying we're not going to talk about that. Like, I'm thankful that we can come together and not even need to discuss those kinds of things.
Right.
It just don't matter to all of us because everything's more important.
Exactly.
So no matter how we feel about it, I'm glad we can still get together and be happy with each other or whatever. That almost is saying,
Cutting
I'm
it
not going to
off.
talk about that today without saying those words and people going, well, I wasn't going to blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
But yeah, I always think of just like there's definitely any group situation at play. There's going to be personalities and there's going to be people with certain ideas, and it does really require a very deft
light touch sometimes to direct a conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think humor kind of plays to that idea of safety, right? If you're allowed to, because humor can hurt, right? But as long as it's deployed in a good way, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It can be helpful. But it's being mindful of that. It's really, I feel like all this conversation always goes back to just like pay attention, be mindful.
Yeah.
Because like I think that sometimes it even comes down to, listening to body language. It's not just listening to
Watching.
Yeah.
What's spoken.
Exactly.
Right.
The unspoken.
Unspoken is just
It's
as
just as
important.
yeah, sometimes more so, depending on what you're discussing or dealing with.
We call it reading the room.
Yes, yeah.
And there's a lot to that. And there are a lot of people that aren't good at reading a room.
Very
I was just
true.
going to say, not
Very
at
true.
all.
Yeah.
And therein lies, because that does happen, is how do we deal with that? Because if we know the person has no clue how to, and I'm not trying to be negative,
No.
but
No,
they
but
don't,
it's just a
and they
fact.
just think that there's where maybe light humor can try to bring down perhaps
Right.
some of that. But the bottom line is, I think we all know individuals that just can't read the room and go off on tangents, and
Yep.
it's really a matter of just trying to rein them in.
Well, and sometimes the more alcohol that flows,
Yeah.
the more
Another-
difficult
it
that
gets.
becomes,
Right.
especially on these holidays. And I know a few that'll step outside and drink and toke, and so
Yeah.
those situations can become even trickier to navigate sometimes.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, the effects of, you're right. And, many times a person's personality totally changes.
Yes,
And especially if they exceed what they typically would drink
right.
at a particular, span of time, that they can't handle it in the same way. And you're right, sometimes get really a bit boisterous and a bit
Right.
opinionated.
Or they're not even realizing it because you're in this sort of group situation.
Yeah.
And for some people, the utilization of alcohol or marijuana might be a way that they utilize to help them feel more comfortable.
Right.
And they're not realizing that they just had 4 or 5 glasses of wine when they usually might only have 1 or
Yeah.
2. So yeah, it's kind of keeping your eye, being a person who grew up with alcoholics all around them. My life has always been kind of keyed into reading the room and sort of knowing what's going on and who's where and who's doing what sort of stuff. You get really used to kind of navigating through these situations and trying to get people to either move them out of a situation that you can see going wrong, or it's time to go home now, if that might be the case. And
Well, maybe you need
That's
to just
not
go
always
lie down and
easy.
take a little snooze.
yeah, and that's not always
The spare
easy
room
to
is right
navigate.
there.
Yeah, so I feel for people that struggle with that, because it is a really difficult thing to navigate, and
Yes, it is.
sometimes you do have to say to yourself that you can only do so much.
Exactly.
So I think the word grace has already been brought up, but even giving yourself grace to know that you can't solve every problem today either.
Right.
So it's okay, and sometimes things aren't going to go 100% all right, and that doesn't mean it was a bad day. It just means that, there was a situation that you couldn't do anything about, and that
Exactly.
happens.
You're already cooking dinner.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah, I think the thing that happens, this might be a little personable, I might edit this out later, but I notice when I have a few beers, it's my thick skin gets much thinner. And so that idea of being aware of responding and it becomes a point where I just don't care. Because it's like you got to put up this you're talking about it takes a lot of work to read a room and
do this emotional intelligence and work and play or whatever. And yeah, when I have a few drinks, my skin gets much thinner, and I will lash out because it's that like devil may care attitude, wander into a room like loud boisterousness, and just like, if I'm drinking and you do that, I'm gonna be it. But yeah, it's like also, but that's my fault, right? That's something that I need to be better about, but I am aware of. But anyway, that I might edit that one out. We'll see. Some people listen to this. But that idea of just like emotional intelligence, right? It's like, even with, let's say you're very practiced about it. You may know how to do it, but you have to make that decision to apply those things, right? Apply those tools, and that takes work.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
But you touched on the most important thing. It is a skill. Any skill is not raw talent. It's something that can be learned. So every single person is capable of learning those skills. And maybe by watching you practice those skills, they'll want to improve their own.
I think just, be open and be inviting and put a smile on your face, and I think that goes a long way for people. I spend a lot of time meeting people and talking to people in St. Albans and working with my community, and I've found that just entering with a smile and a nice greeting and a nice start will really tee off everything to be on a more positive level.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're bringing people into your space. You want to be as welcoming as possible. That starts with a smile. And also kind of giving them the lay of the land. If you'd like to have a drink, there's this over here, whatever. I'm going to take this outside the Thanksgiving moment and just test this out. But even walking down the street, if you smile at someone, how it can change their day. And I'm very serious. People go, come on. Yeah. Because so many people don't. They go about their business. They're very tunneled, or maybe they're reading their phone as they're walking. But I tell you, opening a door for someone, smiling at someone as they're walking down, can absolutely change how they feel about what they're doing and who and what they are.
I can speak to that point because having hosted people from all over the world for years right in St. Albans, I can't tell you how many times the feedback from them has been, people are so friendly here. People actually smile and say hello. And, they said, we went to another town 28 miles south, I won't name, and no one was friendly, and it was not very welcoming. But we love walking around this little town and shopping because the shop owners are pleasant. Everybody's very welcoming, and and I've always been proud to say we work at it here. We have a downtown of business owners that work together, and obviously now I'm not in the downtown, but I like to think I'm still part of that community because I'm still maintaining those relationships and working for the common good. With everyone there, it goes a long way.
Yep. No, I love that. I love that as a final thought because I can put my pen on at the end of it. Because on top of all this political conversation that we've had to deal with over the last year, so much of this is cultural. We're trying to redefine our basic understanding of each other and how we treat each other, and I feel like we're in a bad place right now, just as a country, because we have to get back to that understanding that to be good to each other starts with us. It starts with the actions we do every day, and sometimes that's really hard to get out there. So, what are you guys doing for Thanksgiving? You got any Thanksgiving plans?
Oh yeah. There's always
meal here
plans.
on Tuesday. I don't have any plans because my son was born on Thanksgiving, so his past 3 birthdays, 4, his past 3 birthdays, I hosted a meal and treated it like his birthday party. But now he's in preschool and he wants his preschool friends, and I thought, oh, okay. So my side of the family was only at my house, and now I'm like, I'm not doing that, and I'm cooking a meal here. So we don't have a meal that we're doing. And my mom was gonna host it, but she's having cataract surgery, and we said don't overdo it. My other side, my sister's side of the family has a meal to go to, so I'm just gonna bring all my family here on Tuesday.
Nice.
And it is open to the community. If anyone out there has it doesn't have a plan or a place that they're going to go for a meal, there is room here at the center. It is not just for Fairfield, Bakersfield, and East Fairfield. We have some people who come from Burlington and St. Albans. So if anyone's looking for a meal for Thanksgiving, it'll be here on Tuesday.
That's fantastic. We'll definitely include that for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks again to our guests for participating in this month's episode. And thanks for listening. You can find more detail about the Fairfield Community Center's Thanksgiving dinner attached to this episode or online at stalbansmessenger.com.